So I saw The Wild Robot about 2 weeks ago, and before heading into the theater, they gave us this, which I don't really know what to call it, but think of it as sort of like a Lego set, but instead of it being Legos, it's just cardboard pieces. And so yeah, it's basically this like little toy where you're able to build the main character of the movie, Ross, sort of like a Lego. And so I decided to film myself building this character, but while doing it, it's also a good excuse for me to talk about the movie. I know it's been 2 weeks since the movie was released, so a review for it is kind of late at this point, but hey, this is a good excuse for me to talk about the movie while I'm building the character. So let's go for it. You can find a piece of you that you've been hiding. You've been hiding. What if you chase your heart out to the edge? So The Wild Robot, what did I think of this movie? My gosh, man, everybody's correct. This film is freaking amazing, dude. DreamWorks is back, baby. It is back. Like, yes, technically it was already back with Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, but like after that we had the mid Kung Fu Panda 4 and also the I haven't even seen it, but I already know how it's gonna be like just by seeing the trailer. That straight to streaming Megamind sequel, which like come on, dude. But then they redeemed themselves with this movie, which is so freaking good, man. I still need to talk about it, even though it's been released like for 2 weeks now. I saw this movie in 3D because my friend who I saw it with wanted to see it in 3D, and personally, I didn't really like the 3D that much. For me, like 3D is good in some movies, but for me personally, the 3D in this one felt a little bit distracting. But despite that, I was still able to recognize that the animation in this movie is freaking beautiful. It is so colorful. I love the way the setting looks. I love the movement of the characters. I love the colors. It is such a colorful movie. It's such a bright movie. And it even has some surprisingly good action scenes. It's got some really good action scenes, so surprisingly. Like, obviously not like Kung Fu Panda levels of action, but it was surprisingly good with the few action scenes that it had. And yeah, in general, man, it is such a beautiful looking film. I don't think I saw it in the best possible way because the 3D I wasn't a big fan of. But despite that, it is still a beautiful movie, and I can't wait to watch it again eventually to actually see it in its full glory. It is beautiful. So the story of this movie is a relatively simple one. It's not in any way a groundbreaking story of any sorts. It's a kind of story that has been told before. The whole parent and son relationship story and them getting closer to each other and stuff. Like, we've seen stories like this before. I would even say it can be a little bit predictable at times. But this movie succeeds and soars because of the execution of said story. There is nothing wrong with having a story that has been told before if you manage to execute it well, and that's exactly what this movie did. Because my gosh, man, this movie was surprisingly emotional, dude. And holy crap, I actually forgot to even say what the movie's actually about. So basically, it's just about this robot who gets stranded on this island, a place where she's not supposed to be at. And she's a robot that is just programmed to assist people. And so when she's in this setting that she's not supposed to be at and just seeing these animals instead of people, she eventually comes across this baby goose. And it basically results in her first ever program, which is basically being this goose's parent, you know? And so the rest of the film is all about her learning to become a parent for this goose and learning about the setting more, learning from other animal characters, but also coming across her own conflicts regarding should she find a way to go back to where she's actually supposed to be at or stay here. And yeah, that's basically the movie. And yeah, again, it does stuff that has been done before, but it really, really succeeds for the execution. The parental relationship between Ross, the robot, and the goose named Bright Bill is so beautiful, man, and emotional. It really tugged at my heartstrings at times, man. There were several moments where, like, it just really got me, man. And with my friend who I saw it with, he straight up did cry. Like, after watching the movie, he said that while seeing it, he cried like 4 times. 4 freaking times, man. Can you believe that? But yeah, man, like, this parent and son relationship between this robot and this goose was so well made, man. It was so beautiful. It really got to my emotions, man. Something else that I really loved about this film is how throughout the course of the movie, we see Ross become less and less robotic and more human the more she spends time in this place with these characters. She becomes more like she's developing a soul. And I really love that because it also it really shows her development as a character and just how she's changing with these interactions, which is again just so beautiful. Beginning the movie, I was actually a little bit concerned because part of me felt like I was gonna have a hard time getting emotionally attached to this character when she's just constantly acting so robotic that she doesn't feel alive, and like her talking like a robot, going like, hey, I would like to be of a service, what could I do? Like, I forgot her lines and stuff, but like beginning the movie, she just really talks and acts like so much of a robot that I don't know if I was gonna get emotionally attached to that. Unlike something like WALL-E, which even though WALL-E barely even talks at all, like even then, for the most part, in that movie, he almost for like the entire film, you really do sense some humanity in him, and he doesn't feel too much like a robot. In this movie, Ross did, and so that left me a little bit concerned. But I realized the more I was watching the movie that that's the point, because she's beginning as just this lifeless machine, but throughout the course of the film, more and more as the movie goes on and the more she interacts with these characters, it's then where she slowly starts to develop a soul and she becomes alive and she starts to get emotions. That's when she starts to become more and more human. And I freaking love that, man. And like, I love the way it's presented in the film. Like, again, in the beginning, the way she behaves and acts and talks, it's very machine-like. But as the movie goes on, you really start to sense these subtle expressions on her metallic face. The movie does a really good job in actually showing emotions through her expressions, even though she doesn't even have a mouth nor eyebrows, because again, she's just a robot. She looks like this if you're watching me build her. With a face like that, the movie does a really good job in actually giving her expressions and really showing her emotions within. There was this scene where Bright Bill the goose is starting to do this big thing that without like getting into spoilers, he does this thing where he kind of is not going to be able to see Ross for a while, which is something that all parents go through. All parents have to face the facts that eventually their children are going to have to leave for a while and they can't see them and stuff. That happens with Ross in this moment. And my gosh, man, like the expression she gives when looking at Bright Bill and just seeing her face of like, I'm gonna miss you so badly. Like, bro, like, it was so cool seeing just that expression in her metallic face that just really showed us the feeling she's having. And again, like, it's not just with her expressions, it's also with her movement and the way she's talking. As the film goes on, she's not talking like a robot that much anymore. She actually does start to talk like a living person. Like, again, I really love that about the film. Just seeing her development and her change from a robot into a person. I loved that about this movie. Now, Ross and Bright Bill are not the only good characters in this film, because this movie does also have several memorable and enjoyable side characters. There's this fox who was pretty funny, but also had some emotional moments. There was this bear who I really liked his development in the movie. There was this funny possum, this quirky beaver. Overall, this movie does a good job in actually giving you memorable and interesting side characters. And overall, I just really love just how sweet this movie is. It is such a warm, sweet, and wholesome movie where you just really feel the connection that the characters have with each other, not just with Ross and Bright Bill, but just seeing Ross just get so emotionally attached with her environment and the animals around her, and them growing to get attached to her as well. Like, overall, man, like this is such a sweet and warm, wholesome movie that just reminds you the importance and the value of human connection. I know that may sound super cheesy and all, but like, this movie does it really well, man. The movie isn't perfect, however. Like I said, the story isn't really the most original out there, which isn't really a big issue because, like I said, it's the execution that really matters here, so that's not really an issue. I guess the film could be a little funnier. Like, it wasn't unfunny. It's not like the jokes were bad or anything, but I do wish it could be a little funnier at times. However, I do like how the humor can be pretty dark sometimes for a kid's movie. Like, I really like how Bright Bill, as a baby, some pretty bad stuff happened to the poor thing, but it's represented in like a humorous way that I couldn't help but laugh. And so it's like some dark humor in there. Also, like, in general, it's the kind of humor that just pokes fun of how harsh nature is, and just all of the bad things that happen when you're an animal trying to survive in the wild and stuff. And like, again, it just really shows just some bleak scenarios, but it shows it in a funny way. And heck, there's even this joke, which I'm not gonna spoil it, but with the possum character, there's this joke that happens that shows that, honestly, like, she's kind of a terrible mother, but that's kind of what makes it so funny, because like, she says something regarding one of her children that, like, my gosh, like, that is just so mean and so cruel as a mother, but I couldn't help but find it funny. So like, yeah, this movie is pretty funny at times, but yeah, there were still some moments where I did desire for the film to be even funnier than it was at some parts. Some parts were just like slight chuckles, and I did kind of want for like, man, if you could only be a little funnier than that. But it still had good jokes, still was funny, still liked the dark humor in it, so it did a good job on that part still. But okay, now to actually mention a genuine small flaw that I did have with the film, and that is the final battle. This movie has a final battle towards the end, and my problem with it was that, honestly, that final battle was almost useless. Not entirely, because we do see some character development in it, but the reason why it was almost useless is because there was this villain that came in the third act for this final battle, and this villain was trying to get Ross to do this thing. No spoilers, I'm just gonna be vague like that. And it's in this final battle where the characters are trying to prevent this thing from happening, but when that final battle ends and the characters do win in preventing that thing, the thing still happens later on. And so, like, that's kind of the small issue I have with it, in that, like, we have this entire long, like, relatively long final battle that we have in this movie, in this third act, and for all of that to amount to almost nothing, because again, like, the thing that they were trying their best to prevent from happening still ends up happening at the end of the day, kind of makes it feel like, then what was the point of all of this, you know? And so, yeah, I think it would have been nice if this final battle could have amounted to something a little more, because, again, what the characters were trying their best to prevent still ends up happening. But, again, it's not a big issue. I would honestly say it's even almost a nitpick, but still, I think it's worth mentioning. In general, man, yeah, this movie is worth all the hype. Like, so far, everybody is loving it. Everybody is raving how, yes, DreamWorks is back with this movie and all. And yeah, man, I agree. It is worth the hype. It is a really, really good movie, really good family film, really good DreamWorks film. I would honestly say it's one of their best in years. Much like Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, this movie feels like DreamWorks' quote-unquote glory days, which I would consider to be, like, I guess, the 2000s decade, where they were giving off Shrek and Kung Fu Panda, like that era of DreamWorks, the best age of DreamWorks. This movie feels like that era of DreamWorks. It is that good, man. Is it better than The Last Wish? Well, I would say that The Last Wish is probably technically the better film, because that movie is just very complete in almost every way. Like, almost everything about it was very well done. This movie is not quite as complete. Like I said, I already said a little bit of the small issues I had with it. So maybe it's not as good as The Last Wish, but I will say this, I do definitely like it more than Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Puss in Boots is great. I really like that film. I think it's an amazing movie as well. But what this movie did that Puss in Boots: The Last Wish didn't do was that this one really affected me emotionally, okay? It was an emotional roller coaster. I was invested more in what was going on in this movie than I was in Puss in Boots. So yeah, even though I probably wouldn't say it's better than The Last Wish, I did love it a lot more. I really loved this movie. I thought it was amazing. I would love to watch it again. I would love to show it to my family. It's great, man. It's great. And much like a lot of people were asking about with Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, I hope that this movie, The Wild Robot, is a good indication of a good future for DreamWorks, which has been very hit or miss recently. I hope that this movie is a sign that there is a bright horizon for DreamWorks in the future. Yeah, man, it's great. Honestly, highly recommend it. So far, it's one of my favorite movies, period, so far this year. It is absolutely great. I love it. Please watch it when you can. The Wild Robot is fantastic. I'm gonna give The Wild Robot a 9 out of 10. So what did you guys think of The Wild Robot? Did you like it? Did you love it like I did? Or did you think it was overhyped? Let me know down in the comments. And also, what do you guys think of little Ross right here and little Bright Bill? Spill out whatever thought you guys have in the comments, and thank you so much guys for watching. Stay tuned if you would like to see more film reviews. Peace out, fellow moviegoers!